In 1977, the U.S. government ordered American automakers to downsize their cars or face the consequences. Cadillac panicked. They slashed the Eldorado's length and weight, rushing a smaller car to market in the middle of Cadillac downsizing chaos. But Lincoln, they had a different plan. Instead of shrinking, Lincoln unleashed the Continental Mark V, the ultimate land yacht, 19 feet of pure American excess. Under that endless hood sat a 460 big block V8 that didn't care about fuel economy or regulations. It was a middle finger to efficiency, wrapped in chrome and crushed velvet. And here's the kicker, buyers loved it. From 1977 to 1979, the Mark V absolutely humiliated Cadillac in the showroom. This is the story of the last great American luxury barge and how it became Cadillac's worst nightmare. To understand why the Mark V humiliated Cadillac, we need to go back to the crisis that changed everything. The 1973 oil embargo. When OPEC cut off oil supplies to the United States, gas prices didn't just rise, they exploded. Lines at gas stations stretched around city blocks. Rationing became the norm, and overnight, the big, thirsty V8-powered luxury cars that had defined American success for decades suddenly seemed reckless, even embarrassing. By 1975, Congress responded with the Corporate Average Fuel Economy Standards, CAFE for short. These regulations forced every automaker to hit specific fuel economy targets across their entire lineup or face massive fines. The message was clear: the era of 18-foot, 5,000-pound personal luxury coupes was over. Adapt or die. At the same time, foreign competitors were capitalizing on America's weakness. Mercedes-Benz and BMW were flooding dealerships with smaller, more efficient luxury cars that felt modern and sophisticated compared to Detroit's aging dinosaurs. Even Japanese brands like Toyota and Datsun were moving upmarket, offering luxury features in fuel-sipping packages that made American land yachts look primitive by comparison. For Cadillac and Lincoln, this was a full-blown existential crisis. These two brands had spent decades locked in a brutal rivalry for supremacy in the American luxury market. Cadillac, proudly calling itself the standard of the world, had traditionally dominated. Year after year, they outsold Lincoln, commanding respect as the ultimate symbol of having truly made it in America. Lincoln, historically the underdog, had been clawing its way back with the Continental Mark series, a line of massive, opulent personal luxury coupes that absolutely oozed prestige. The Mark III and Mark IV were successful, but Lincoln was still playing catch-up to Cadillac's deeply entrenched dominance. Now both brands face the same impossible question: how do you sell excess in an era demanding restraint? Cadillac's answer was swift and decisive: downsize. Immediately. Be proactive. Show buyers and regulators that Cadillac was forward-thinking, modern, responsible. Build the car the future demanded, not the car of the past. Lincoln's answer: wait. Lincoln's executives made a calculated gamble. They believed there was still one more generation of buyers out there, one final wave of customers who didn't want a sensible, downsized luxury car. They wanted drama, they wanted presence, they wanted one last taste of American excess before the government made it illegal. And so, while Cadillac frantically retooled its factories for the downsized future, Lincoln doubled down on the past. They decided to build the biggest, most unapologetically excessive personal luxury coupe they could. Regulations be damned. That car was the Mark V. The Lincoln Continental Mark V wasn't just big, it was obscenely, defiantly, gloriously massive. At 230 inches long, that's over 19 feet, the Mark V was one of the longest production cars ever built in America. To put that in perspective, it was longer than a modern Ford F-150 Super Crew with an 8-foot bed. Longer than most full-size SUVs on the road today. If you parked a Mark V in a standard parking space, good luck fitting anything in the spots next to you. But the real story wasn't just the overall length, it was the hood. The Mark V's hood stretched a staggering 6 feet from the base of the windshield to the front bumper. 6 feet. That's longer than most people are tall, longer than a Honda Civic is wide, longer than the entire wheelbase of a Mazda Miata. Standing at the front of the car, You couldn't even see the base of the windshield. The hood just went on and on and on. And Lincoln wasn't embarrassed by this absurdity, they celebrated it. That endless expanse of sheet metal was crowned with a massive chrome grille, one that looked like it had been borrowed straight from a Rolls-Royce. Vertical chrome bars stretched from bumper to hood, flanked by quad rectangular headlights that gave the Mark V an imposing, almost menacing face. And at the very tip of the hood sat a stand-up chrome hood ornament, a gleaming Lincoln star, perched at the prow of this land yacht, like a ship's figurehead cutting through the ocean. The side profile was equally dramatic. Long, sweeping lines, a formal roofline with a small rear window that emphasized the car's length, chrome trim everywhere, around the windows, along the belt line, on the wheel arches. The Mark V wasn't trying to be subtle, it was designed to be seen from 3 blocks away. Inside, the Mark V was a rolling palace, crushed velvet or leather seats, depending on the trim, acres of simulated wood grain covering the dashboard and door panels, deep pile carpeting. The dashboard looked like it belonged in a private jet, with toggles and buttons for power windows, power locks, power seats with lumbar support, power vent windows, and even a power trunk release. Standard equipment included air conditioning, cruise control, tilt steering wheel, an AM/FM stereo with an 8-track tape player, and power disc brakes. This wasn't luxury as an option. This was luxury as standard. Under that ridiculous hood sat the legendary Ford 460 cubic inch V8, 7.5 liters of cast iron American muscle. Yes, emission strangling had reduced output to a modest 208 horsepower, which sounds pathetic by modern standards, but this engine made a tire-shredding 356 pound-feet of torque at just 2,000 RPM. This wasn't a performance car. This was a statement car. The 460 big block moved the Mark V's 5,000-pound curb weight with the kind of effortless, silent authority that made you feel like royalty gliding down the highway. Fuel economy? Laughable. The Mark V returned somewhere around 10 miles per gallon in city driving, maybe 14 on the highway if you had a feather-light foot on the throttle. But Mark V buyers didn't worry about gas money. If you were dropping the equivalent of $60,000 in today's money on a personal luxury coupe, a few extra dollars at the pump weren't going to keep you up at night. Lincoln offered the Mark V in 3 exclusive designer editions: the Bill Blass edition, the Cartier edition, and the Givenchy edition. Each featured unique 2-tone paint schemes, special badging, embroidered seats, and color-coordinated interiors designed in collaboration with actual fashion houses. This wasn't just a car, it was a rolling piece of art, a drivable middle finger to practicality, and Lincoln was betting everything that American buyers still wanted this kind of excess. They were about to be proven spectacularly right. While Lincoln was going all in on excess, Cadillac was doing the exact opposite. In 1977, the same year Lincoln launched the Mark V, Cadillac unveiled the 8th generation Eldorado, and it was smaller, a lot smaller. Cadillac had slashed the Eldorado's length by over a foot, cutting it from 224 inches down to just 204 inches. They reduced the wheelbase. They shaved off nearly 1,100 pounds of weight. The new Eldorado was sleeker, more aerodynamic, and significantly more fuel efficient than its predecessor. On paper, this looked like a brilliant strategic move. Cadillac was adapting to the new reality. They were showing Washington and the world that America's premier luxury brand could build a car that didn't guzzle fuel like a cargo ship. They thought buyers would appreciate the efficiency, the modernity, the forward-thinking design. They were catastrophically wrong. Buyers didn't want a smaller Cadillac. They especially didn't want a Cadillac that looked like it was apologizing for being a Cadillac. And when shoppers walked into dealerships and saw the downsized Eldorado parked next to Lincoln's massive Mark V, the choice wasn't even close. The sales numbers told a brutal, humiliating story. In 1977, Lincoln sold over 80,321 Mark versus Cadillac managed to move just 47,344 Eldorados. Lincoln had nearly doubled Cadillac's sales. In the personal luxury coupe segment that Cadillac had dominated for decades, they'd just been destroyed by their underdog rival. 1978 wasn't any better. Lincoln moved 72,602 Marks versus Cadillac sold only 46,816 Eldorados. The trend was clear and devastating. By 1979, even as CAFE standards tightened and gas prices fluctuated, the Mark V was still crushing it with over 75,000 units sold. Cadillac's Eldorado limped along in the mid-40,000 range. It was a complete massacre. But the sales numbers only told part of the story. The real damage was in perception. Cadillac had rushed the downsizing process, and it showed. Panel gaps, rattles, fit and finish problems that made the car feel cheaper than its predecessor. Buyers noticed, reviewers noticed, and suddenly, the standard of the world felt like a compromise. Lincoln, by contrast, had taken their time. The Mark V was built like a bank vault. Doors closed with a satisfying, solid thunk. The body panels were laser straight. Everything felt substantial, over-engineered, worth every penny of the asking price. More importantly, the Mark V felt confident. It felt like Lincoln believed in what they were building. The Eldorado, meanwhile, felt apologetic, like Cadillac was ashamed of its own heritage, embarrassed to still be building luxury cars in an era that supposedly didn't want them anymore. And American luxury buyers, it turned out, didn't want apologies. They wanted presents. They wanted drama. They wanted one last hurrah before the government forced everyone to downsize. Lincoln gave them that hurrah. Cadillac didn't, and Cadillac would spend the next decade trying to recover from that mistake. Lincoln knew they had struck gold with the Mark V, so they milked it for everything it was worth. The designer editions weren't just marketing gimmicks. They were legitimate collaborations with some of the most prestigious names in fashion, and they turned the Mark V from a luxury car into a cultural statement. The Bill Blass edition was the sportiest of the three. It featured distinctive two-tone paint schemes, typically a light color on top, with a darker shade on the lower body, separated by an elegant pinstripe that ran the entire length of the car. The interior got unique cloth inserts designed by Blass himself, with coordinating carpet piping and special Bill Blass signature scripts on the dashboard and rear quarter panels. It was understated elegance, with an athletic edge. The Cartier edition was pure opulence. It came with a simulated convertible roof, a padded vinyl top with an embossed grain that mimicked a rag top. The interior featured Cartier's signature colors, usually champagne or cream leather with gold accents. But the crown jewel? The dashboard-mounted Cartier clock, an actual timepiece, with the Cartier name that gave the interior the feel of a luxury boutique. Gold Cartier scripts adorned the rear pillars, and special gold-accented wheels completed the look. The Givenchy edition went even further into haute couture territory. Designer Hubert de Givenchy personally selected fabrics and color combinations that wouldn't have looked out of place in a Parisian fashion house. Deep jewel tones, rich velvets, contrast stitching. The Givenchy edition often featured the most dramatic color schemes: midnight blue with cream, burgundy with champagne, combinations that demanded attention. These weren't just different paint colors and badges. Each designer edition came with unique interior materials, special badging inside and out, color-coordinated floor mats, and even matching key fobs. Lincoln wasn't selling transportation. They were selling lifestyle, status, and taste, and buyers ate it up. The designer editions commanded premium pricing, sometimes $2,000 to $3,000 over the base Mark V's already hefty $12,000 sticker price. But in the late 1970s, if you showed up to the country club in a Cartier edition, Mark V, everyone knew you had arrived. These cars became instant classics, not just among car enthusiasts, but among fashion-conscious buyers who saw the Mark V as a rolling expression of personal style. It was luxury you could drive, excess you could show off, and a middle finger to practicality that said, "I've made it, and I don't care what Washington thinks." But Lincoln knew the party couldn't last forever. By 1979, the writing was on the wall. CAFE standards were getting stricter with each passing year. Gas prices remained volatile. The government wasn't backing down, and the grace period for oversized land yachts was rapidly running out. In 1979, Lincoln built the final Mark V, and they knew it was the end of an era. Sales that final year were still remarkably strong. Over 75,939 units moved. That's a testament to just how badly buyers wanted one last piece of old-school American luxury before it disappeared forever. People were literally lining up to buy a car they knew was about to become extinct. Lincoln was already deep into development on the Mark VI, which would debut for the 1980 model year. And it was everything the Mark V wasn't. Smaller, lighter, more fuel-efficient, more sensible. The 1980 Mark VI was nearly 2 feet shorter than the Mark V. It lost over 600 pounds. The 460 big block was gone, replaced by a smaller 302 cubic inch 5.8. The hood shrunk dramatically. The presence evaporated. On paper, the Mark VI was a better car. It handled better. It got better fuel economy. It was more modern, more refined, more in step with the times, but it would never be iconic like the Mark V. The Mark VI sold reasonably well. Lincoln wasn't stupid. They knew downsizing was inevitable, but it never captured hearts the way its predecessor did. It was a compromise, a surrender, an acknowledgement that the golden age was over. Meanwhile, Cadillac finally started to recover from their downsizing disaster. They refined the Eldorado, fixed the quality issues, and gradually won back some of the buyers they'd lost. By the early 1980s, Cadillac and Lincoln were back to their traditional rivalry, now both building smaller, more efficient luxury coupes. But Cadillac never lived down the humiliation of 1977 to 1979. They never forgot the years when Lincoln, the perpetual underdog, had beaten them at their own game by simply refusing to panic. The Mark V had proven something important. Sometimes, giving customers one last taste of what they love is smarter than rushing to give them what you think they need. And when that final Mark V rolled off the assembly line in 1979, it marked the true end of American automotive excess. Everything that came after would be smaller, lighter, more efficient, but nothing would ever be quite as magnificent. Today, the Mark V occupies a unique place in automotive history and in the collector car market. Clean, low-mileage examples in original condition can fetch anywhere from $15,000 to $30,000, depending on condition, mileage, and most importantly, which edition you're buying. A base Mark V in decent shape might go for $12,000 to $18,000, but a pristine Cartier or Blass edition with low miles and documented history that can easily command $25,000 to $35,000 from the right collector. The designer editions have become especially sought after. Collectors appreciate the fashion house collaborations, the unique color combinations, and the cultural significance of a car that bridged automotive engineering and haute couture. Finding a Givenchy edition with its original interior intact? That's like finding a piece of wearable art. The 460 big block has developed its own cult following. It's one of Ford's last truly massive displacement V8s, and hot rodders still hunt for them to drop into resto mods and custom builds. A running 460 in good condition can fetch $2,000 to $3,000 on its own. But beyond the dollars and cents, the Mark V represents something larger. It's remembered as the last true American land yacht, the final gasp of an era when cars were judged not by efficiency, not by practicality, but by presence and personality. The 1980 Mark VI, forgotten by most. The 1981 to 1983 models, barely remembered. But the Mark V, immortal. It's the car people point to when they talk about the way cars used to be. And for 3 glorious years, it was the king of the American road. So what's the real lesson here? Cadillac thought they were being smart. They analyzed the data, studied the regulations, read the room. They built the car. They believed the future demanded. They were logical, forward-thinking, responsible, and they got absolutely destroyed. Lincoln, on the other hand, looked at that same future and said, "Not yet." They understood something Cadillac had forgotten. Luxury isn't about logic, it's about emotion. It's about presence. It's about making people feel like $1 million when they slide behind the wheel. The Mark V humiliated Cadillac, not because it was objectively better, but because it understood what buyers actually wanted in 1977. One last taste of the American dream before regulations made it illegal, and when that dream finally ended in 1979, when Lincoln was forced to downsize like everyone else, the Mark V became legend. It became the car people pointed to and said, That's what American luxury used to mean. Cadillac recovered, of course. They went on to build excellent cars in the decades that followed, but they never forgot 1977 to 1979, the years they panicked and lost to a competitor who simply refused to apologize. The Mark V remains a 19-foot monument to defiance, a rolling middle finger to efficiency, practicality, and common sense, and for 3 glorious years, it was the undisputed king. Thank you all for watching. If you enjoyed this deep dive into the Lincoln Mark V, hit that like button and drop a comment. Would you daily drive a 19-foot land yacht in 2026? Be sure to subscribe for more forgotten classics. Until next time, enthusiasts,